Phylogeny Grasshoppers belong to the suborder Caeli Fera. Although grasshopper has been used as a common name for the suborder in general, 3 for 5 modern sources restrict it to the more evolved families. 6. They may be placed in the inforder Acrididea 7 and have been referred to as short-horned grasshoppers in older texts 8 to distinguish them from the also obsolete term long-horned grasshoppers, now bush crickets or katydids with their much longer antennae. The phylogeny of the Caeli Fera, based on mitochondrial ribosomal RNA of 30 to taxa in 6 out of 7 superfamilies, is shown as a cladogram. The Ensiphera crickets, etc., Caeli Fera, and all the superfamilies of grasshoppers except Pamphagoidea appear to be monophyletic. 9-10 Orthoptera Ensiphera crickets, katydids, etc. 6 superfamilies, Caeli Fera tridactyloidea tetragoidea eumasticoidea proscopioidea pneumoroidea pyrgomorphoidea acridoidea fossil grasshoppers at the Royal Ontario Museum. In evolutionary terms, the split between the Caeli Fera and the Ensiphera is no more recent than the Permo-Triassic boundary. 11 The earliest insects that are certainly caeliferans are in the extinct families Locustopsidae and Locustividae from the early Triassic, roughly 250 million years ago. The group diversified during the Triassic and have remained important plant eaters from that time to now. The first modern families, such as the Eumastacidae, Tetragidae, and Tridactylidae appeared in the Cretaceous, though some insects that might belong to the last 2 of these groups are found in the early Jurassic. 12-13. Morphological classification is difficult because many taxa have converged towards a common habitat type. Recent taxonomists have concentrated on the internal genitalia, especially those of the male. This information is not available from fossil specimens, and the paleontological taxonomy is founded principally on the venation of the hindwings. 14 The Caeli Fera includes some 2,000 for 100 valid genera and about 11,000 known species. Many undescribed species probably exist, especially in tropical wet forests. The Caeli Fera have a predominantly tropical distribution, with fewer species known from temperate zones, but most of the superfamilies have representatives worldwide. They are almost exclusively herbivorous and are probably the oldest living group of chewing herbivorous insects. 14 The most diverse superfamily is the Acridoidea, with around 8,000 species. The 2 main families in this are the Acrididae grasshoppers and locusts, with a worldwide distribution, and the Romelidae lubber grasshoppers, found chiefly in the New World. The Omyxacidae and Tristeridae are South American, and the Lentulidae, Lithididae, and Pamphagidae are mainly African. The Pollinids are nocturnal and can swim or skate on water, and the Lentilids are wingless. 12. Pneumoridae are native to Africa, particularly southern Africa, and are distinguished by the inflated abdomens of the males. 15. Characteristics have the typical insect body plan of head, thorax, and abdomen. The head is held vertically at an angle to the body, with the mouth at the bottom. The head bears a large pair of compound eyes, which give all-round vision, 3 simple eyes, which can detect light and dark, and a pair of thread-like antennae that are sensitive to touch and smell. The downward-directed mouth parts are modified for chewing, and there are 2 sensory palps in front of the jaws. 16. The thorax and abdomen are segmented and have a rigid cuticle made up of overlapping plates, composed of chitin. The 3 fused thoracic segments bear 3 pairs of legs and 2 pairs of wings. The forewings, known as tegmina, are narrow and leathery, while the hindwings are large and membranous, the veins providing strength. The legs are terminated by claws for gripping. The hind leg is particularly powerful. The legs of these species are so powerful that they can jump quite a long distance. They also use this to flee from danger. 17. The femur is robust and has several ridges where different surfaces join, and the inner ridges bear stridulatory pegs in some species. The posterior edge of the tibia bears a double row of spines, and there are a pair of articulated spurs near its lower end. The interior of the thorax houses the muscles that control the wings and legs. 16 to differential grasshoppers, with visible spines along the tibia of the hind leg sensifera, like this great green bush cricket Tedigonia viridissima. Somewhat resemble grasshoppers, but have over 20 segments in their antennae and different. Ovipositors. The abdomen has 11 segments, the first of which is fused to the thorax and contains the tympanal organ and hearing system. Segments 2 to 8 are ring-shaped and joined by flexible membranes. Female grasshoppers are normally larger than males, with short ovipositors. 16. These sounds are produced mainly by males to attract females, though in some species the females also stridulate. 20 grasshoppers may be confused with crickets, but they differ in many aspects. These include the number of segments in their antennae and the structure of the ovipositor, as well as the location of the tympanal organ and the methods by which sound is produced. 21 encipherans have antennae that can be much longer than the body and have at least 20 to 24 segments, while caeliferans have fewer segments in their shorter, stouter antennae. 20. Diet and digestion structure of mouth parts. Further information. Digestive system of insects. Most grasshoppers are polyphagous, eating vegetation from multiple plant sources. 22. But some are omnivorous and also eat animal tissue and animal feces. 23. In general, their preference is for grasses, including many cereals grown as crops. 24. The digestive system is typical of insects, with malpighian tubules discharging into the midgut. Carbohydrates are digested mainly in the crop, while proteins are digested in the ceca of the midgut. Saliva is abundant, but largely free of enzymes, helping to move food and malpighian secretions along the gut. Some grasshoppers possess cellulase, which by softening plant cell walls makes plant cell contents accessible to other digestive enzymes. 25 grasshoppers can also be cannibalistic when swarming. 26, 27, 28 a differential grasshopper eating the leaf of a climbing pea plant. A differential grasshopper eating the leaf of a climbing pea plant. Cellulase in its digestive tract allows it to digest cellulose in the cell walls of plants. On the side of the head are a pair of large compound eyes, which give a broad field of vision and can detect movement, shape, color, and distance. There are also 3 simple eyes ocelli on the forehead, which can detect light intensity, a pair of antennae containing olfactory, smell, and touch receptors, and mouth parts containing gustatory taste receptors. 29. The receptors convey information to the central nervous system through sensory neurons, and most of these have their cell bodies located in the periphery near the receptor site itself. 30. Circulation and respiration. Further information. Insect morphology section. Circulatory system and respiratory system of insects. Like other insects, grasshoppers have an open circulatory system, and their body cavities are filled with hemolymph. This system circulates nutrients throughout the body and carries metabolic wastes to be excreted into the gut. Respiration is performed using trachea, air-filled tubes, which open at the surfaces of the thorax and abdomen through pairs of valved spiracles. Larger insects may need to actively ventilate their bodies by opening some spiracles, while others remain closed, using abdominal muscles to expand and contract the body and pump air through the system. 33. Jumping grasshoppers jump by extending their large back legs and pushing against the substrate, the ground, a twig, a blade of grass, or whatever else they are standing on. The reaction force propels them into the air. A large grasshopper, such as a locust, can jump about 1.20 m body lengths without using its wings. The acceleration peaks at about 20 g. 35. They jump for several reasons: to escape from a predator, to launch themselves into flight, or simply to move from place to place. This means that the legs must thrust against the ground with both high force and a high velocity of movement. A fundamental property of muscle is that it cannot contract with high force and high velocity at the same time. Grasshoppers overcome this by using a catapult mechanism to amplify the mechanical power produced by their muscles. 36. The jump is a 3-stage process. 37. First, The grasshopper fully flexes the lower part of the leg tibia against the upper part femur by activating the flexor tibia muscle. The back legs of the grasshopper in the top photograph are I, and this preparatory position. Second, there is a period of co-contraction in which force builds up in the large, pennant extensor tibia muscle, but the tibia is kept flexed by the simultaneous contraction of the flexor tibia muscle. The extensor muscle is much stronger than the flexor muscle, but the latter is aided by specializations in the joint that give it a large effective mechanical advantage over the former when the tibia is fully flexed. 38. Co-contraction can last for up to half a second, and during this period, the extensor muscle shortens and stores elastic strain energy by distorting stiff cuticular structures in the leg. 39. The extensor muscle contraction is quite slow, almost isometric, which allows it to develop high force up to 14 N in the desert locust. But because it is slow, only low power is needed. The third stage of the jump is the trigger relaxation of the flexor muscle, which releases the tibia from the flexed position. The subsequent rapid tibial extension is driven mainly by the relaxation of the elastic structures, rather than by further shortening of the extensor muscle. In this way, the stiff cuticle acts like the elastic of a catapult or the bow of a bow and arrow. Energy is put into the store at low power by slow but strong muscle contraction, and retrieved from the store at high power by rapid relaxation of the mechanical elastic structures. 40. Stridulation. Grasshopper stridulation during 18 seconds. 0:18 Several unidentified grasshoppers stridulating. Problems playing this file? See media help. Male grasshoppers spend much of the day stridulating, singing more actively under optimal conditions and being more subdued when conditions are adverse. Females also stridulate, but their efforts are insignificant when compared to the males. Late-stage male nymphs can sometimes be seen making stridulatory movements, although they lack the equipment to make sounds, demonstrating the importance of this behavioral trait. The songs are a means of communication. The male stridulation seems to express reproductive maturity, the desire for social cohesion, and individual well-being. Social cohesion becomes necessary among grasshoppers because of their ability to jump or fly large distances, and the song can serve to limit dispersal and guide others to favorable habitat. The generalized song can vary in phraseology and intensity, and is modified in the presence of a rival male, and changes again to a courtship song when a female is nearby. 41. In male grasshoppers of the family Numoridae, the enlarged abdomen amplifies stridulation. 15. In most grasshopper species, conflicts between males over females rarely escalate beyond ritualistic displays. Some exceptions include the chameleon grasshopper, Cuscuscola tristis, where males may fight on top of ovipositing females, engaging in leg grappling, biting, kicking, and mounting. 42. The newly emerged female grasshopper has a pre-oviposition period of a week or two, while she increases in weight and her eggs mature. After mating, the female of most species digs a hole with her ovipositor and lays a batch of eggs in a pod in the ground near food plants, generally in the summer. After laying the eggs, she covers the hole with soil and litter. 16. Some, like the semi-aquatic Carnops aquaticum, deposit the pod directly into plant tissue. 43. The eggs in the pod are glued together with a froth in some species. After a few weeks of development, the eggs of most species in temperate climates go into diapause and pass the winter in this state. Diapause is broken by a sufficiently low ground temperature, with development resuming as soon as the ground warms above a certain threshold temperature. The embryos in a pod generally all hatch out within a few minutes of each other. They soon shed their membranes and their exoskeletons harden. These first instar nymphs can then jump away from predators. 40. For grasshoppers undergo incomplete metamorphosis. They repeatedly molt, each instar becoming larger and more like an adult, with the wing buds increasing in size at each stage. The number of instars varies between species, but is often 6. After the final molt, the wings are inflated and become fully functional. Swarming main article. Locust. Millions of plague locusts on the move in Australopithecus are the swarming phase of certain species of shorthorn grasshoppers in the family Acrididae. Swarming behavior is a response to overcrowding. Increased tactile stimulation of the hind legs causes an increase in levels of serotonin. 45. This causes the grasshopper to change color, feed more, and breed faster. The transformation of a solitary individual into a swarming one is induced by several contacts per minute over a short period. 46. Following this transformation, under suitable conditions, dense nomadic bands of flightless nymphs known as hoppers can occur, producing pheromones which attract the insects to each other. With several generations in a year, the locust population can build up from localized groups into vast accumulations of flying insects known as plagues, devouring all the vegetation they encounter. The largest recorded locust swarm was one formed by the now extinct Rocky Mountain locust in 1875. The swarm was 1,800 miles to 1,900 kilometers long and 110 miles 180 kilometers wide. 47, and one estimate puts the number of locusts involved at 3.5 trillion. 48. An adult desert locust can eat about 2 grams 0.1 ounces of plant material each day, so the billions of insects in a large swarm can be very destructive, stripping all the foliage from plants in an affected area and consuming stems, flowers, fruits, seeds, and bark. 49. External parasites of adults and nymphs include mites. 50. Female grasshoppers parasitized by mites produce fewer eggs and thus have fewer offspring than unaffected individuals. 51. Grasshopper with parasitic mites. Grasshopper nematode Myrmis nigrescens is a long, slender worm that infects grasshoppers living in the insect's hemicle. When the worms are sufficiently developed, the grasshopper is persuaded to leap into a nearby body of water where it drowns, thus enabling the parasite to continue with the next stage of its life cycle, which takes place in water. 53. 50 for locusts killed by the naturally occurring fungus, Metarhizium, an environmentally friendly means of biological control. CSIRO 2555 grasshoppers are affected by diseases caused by bacteria, viruses, fungi, and protozoa. The bacteria Serratia marcescens and Pseudomonas aeruginosa have both been implicated in causing disease in grasshoppers, as has the entomopathogenic fungus Beauveria bassiana. This widespread fungus has been used to control various pest insects around the world, but although it infects grasshoppers, the infection is not usually lethal because basking in the sun has the result of raising the insect's temperature above a threshold tolerated by the fungus. 56. The fungal pathogen Entomophaga grilli is able to influence the behavior of its grasshopper host, causing it to climb to the top of a plant and cling to the stem as it dies. It is being investigated for possible use as a microbial insecticide for locust control. 56. The microsporidian fungus Nosma locustae, once considered to be a protozoan, can be lethal to grasshoppers. It has to be consumed by mouth and is the basis for a bait-based commercial microbial pesticide. Various other microsporidians and protozoans are found in the gut. 56. Anti-predator defense. Further information. Anti-predator adaptation. Grasshoppers exemplify a range of anti-predator adaptations, enabling them to avoid detection, to escape if detected, and in some cases to avoid being eaten if captured. Grasshoppers are often camouflaged to avoid detection by predators that hunt by sight. Some species can change their coloration to suit their surroundings. 58. Several species such as the hooded leaf grasshopper Phyllocoria ramakrishnae masticoidea are detailed mimics of leaves. Stick grasshoppers Proscopidae mimic wooden sticks in form and coloration. 59. Grasshoppers often have dimatic patterns on their wings, giving a sudden flash of bright colors that may startle predators long enough to give time to escape in a combination of jump and flight. 60. Some species are genuinely aposematic. Having both bright warning coloration and sufficient toxicity to Dictyophorus productus pyrgomorphidae is a heavy, bloated, sluggish insect that makes no attempt to hide. It has a bright red abdomen. A Cercopithecus monkey that ate other grasshoppers refused to eat the species. 61. Another species, the rainbow or painted grasshopper of Arizona, Dactylotum bicolor acridioidea, has been shown by experiment with a natural predator, the little striped whiptail lizard, to be aposematic. 62. Relationship with humans detail of grasshopper on table in Rachel Reich's painting Flowers in a Vase. See 1685. National Gallery, London. In art and media, grasshoppers are occasionally depicted in artworks, such as the Dutch Golden Age painter Balthasar van der Ast's still life oil painting, Flowers in a Vase with Shells and Insects, c. 1630, now in the National Gallery, London, though the insect may be a bush cricket. 60. For another orthopteran is found in Rachel Reich's still life Flowers in a Vase, c. 1685. The seemingly static scene is animated by a grasshopper on the table that looks about ready to spring, according to the gallery curator Betsy Wiesman, with other invertebrates including a spider, an ant, and caterpillars. 65-66. Grasshoppers are also featured in cinema. The 1957 film Beginning of the End portrayed giant grasshoppers attacking Chicago. 67. In the 1998 Disney Pixar animated film A Bug's Life, the antagonists are a gang of grasshoppers, with their leader Hopper serving as the main villain. 68. The protagonists of the 1971 tokusatsu series Kamen Rider primarily carry a grasshopper motif, for example Kamen Rider Black's Batman form, which continues to serve as the baseline visual template for most entries in the media franchise. It has symbolism. Sir Thomas Gresham's gilded grasshopper symbol, Lombard Street, London, 1563. Grasshoppers are sometimes used as symbols. 69. During the Greek Archaic era, the grasshopper was the symbol of the polis of Athens. 70. Possibly because they were among the most common insects on the dry plains of Attica. 70. Native Athenians for a while wore golden grasshopper brooches to symbolize that they were of pure Athenian lineage with no foreign ancestors. 70. In addition, Pisistratus hung the figure of a kind of grasshopper before the Acropolis of Athens as a apotropaic magic. 71. Another symbolic use of the grasshopper is Sir Thomas Gresham's gilded grasshopper in Lombard Street, London, dating from 1563. The building was for a while the headquarters of the Guardian Royal Exchange, but the company declined to use the symbol for fear of confusion with the locust. 70. Grasshoppers appearing in dreams have been interpreted as symbols of freedom, independence, spiritual enlightenment, inability to settle down or commit to decision. Locusts are taken literally to mean devastation of crops in the case of farmers, figuratively as wicked men and women for non-farmers, and extravagance, misfortune, and ephemeral happiness by gypsies. 73. As food-freed grasshoppers from Gunung Kidul, Yogyakarta. Indonesia Aswitans alti grasshoppers dish in Japan Inago no Sukadani. In some countries, grasshoppers are used as food. 74. In southern Mexico, grasshoppers, known as chapulines, are eaten in a variety of dishes, such as in tortillas with chili sauce. 75. Grasshoppers are served on skewers in some Chinese food markets, like the Dong Weiman night market. 76. Fried grasshoppers walang goreng are eaten in the Gunung Kidul Regency, Yogyakarta, Java in Indonesia. 77. Grasshoppers are a beloved delicacy in Uganda. They are usually eaten fried, most commonly in November and May after the rains. 78. In America, the Ohlone burned grassland to herd grasshoppers into pits where they could be collected as food. 79. It is recorded in the Bible that John the Baptist ate locusts and wild honey Greek, Kappa Rho E Delta Epsilon Sigma Kappa Alpha Mu D Lambda Iota Gamma Rho Iota Omicron Nu, Acrides Cac Meliagrian, while living in the wilderness. 80. However, because of a tradition of depicting him as an ascetic. Attempts have been made to explain that the locusts were in fact a suitably ascetic vegetarian food, such as carrot beans, notwithstanding the fact that the word Kappa Rho E Delta Epsilon Sigma means plainly grasshoppers. 8182. In recent years, with the search for alternative healthy and sustainable protein sources, grasshoppers are being cultivated by commercial companies operating grasshopper farms and are being ed as food and protein supplements. As pests crop pest, grasshopper-eating maize leaf grasshoppers eat large quantities of foliage both as adults and during their development, and can be serious pests of arid land and prairies. Pasture, grain, forage, vegetable, and other crops can be affected. Grasshoppers often bask in the sun and thrive in warm, sunny conditions, so drought stimulates an increase in grasshopper populations. A single season of drought is not normally sufficient to stimulate a major population increase, but several successive dry seasons can do so, especially if the intervening winters are mild, so that large numbers of nymphs survive. Although sunny weather stimulates growth, there needs to be an adequate food supply for the increasing grasshopper population. This means that although precipitation is needed to stimulate plant growth, prolonged periods of cloudy weather will slow nymphal development. 83. Grasshoppers can best be prevented from becoming pests by manipulating their environment. Shade provided by trees will discourage them, and they may be prevented from moving onto developing crops by removing coarse vegetation from fallow land and field margins, and discouraging thick growth beside ditches and on roadside verges. With increasing numbers of grasshoppers, predator numbers may increase, but this seldom happens rapidly enough to have much effect on populations. Biological control is being investigated, and spores of the protozoan parasite Nosma locustae can be used mixed with bait to control grasshoppers, being more effective with immature insects. 84. On a small scale, neem products can be effective as a feeding deterrent and as a disruptor of nymphal development. Insecticides can be used, but adult grasshoppers are difficult to kill, and as they move into fields from surrounding rank growth, crops may soon become reinfested. 83. Some grasshopper species, like the Chinese rice grasshopper, are a pest in rice paddies. Plowing exposes the eggs on the surface of the field to be destroyed by sunshine or eaten by natural enemies. Some eggs may be buried too deeply in the soil for hatching to take place. 85. Illustration of grasshoppers attacking farmers. Grangers versus grasshoppers on the irrepressible conflict. St. Peter, Minnesota. Locust plagues can have devastating effects on human populations, causing famines and population upheavals. They are mentioned in both the Quran and the Bible and have also been held responsible for cholera epidemics, resulting from the corpses of locusts drowned in the Mediterranean Sea and decomposing on beaches. 49. The FAO and other organizations monitor locust activity around the world. Timely application of pesticides can prevent nomadic bands of hoppers from forming before dense swarms of adults can build up. 86. Besides conventional control using contact insecticides, 86. Biological pest control using the entomopathogenic fungus Metarhizium acridum, which specifically infects grasshoppers, has been used with some success. 87. Detection of explosives. In February 2020, researchers from Washington University and St. Louis announced they had engineered cyborg grasshoppers capable of accurately detecting explosives. In the project, funded by the U.S. Office of Naval Research, researchers fitted grasshoppers with lightweight sensor backpacks that recorded and transmitted the electrical activity of their antennal lobe to a computer. According to the researchers, the grasshoppers were able to detect the location of the highest concentration of explosives. The researchers also tested the effect of combining sensorial information from several grasshoppers on detection accuracy. The neural activity from 7 grasshoppers yielded an average detection accuracy rate of 80%, whereas a single grasshopper yielded a 60% rate, 88, 89 in literature. Egyptian hieroglyphs and the Egyptian word for locust or grasshopper was written in the consonantal hieroglyphic writing system. The pharaoh Ramesses II compared the armies of the Hittites to locusts. They covered the mountains and valleys and were like locusts in their multitude. 90. One of Aesop's fables, later retold by La Fontaine, is the tale of the ant and the grasshopper. The ant works hard all summer while the grasshopper plays. In winter, the ant is ready, but the grasshopper starves. Somerset Maugham's short story, The Ant and the Grasshopper, explores the fable's symbolism by a complex framing. 91 other human weaknesses besides improvidence have become identified with the grasshoppers. Behavior. 73. So an unfaithful woman hopping from man to man is a grasshopper in Papargunia, an 1892 short story by Anton Chekhov. 92. And in Jerry Paris's 1969 film The Grasshopper. 93-94. In mechanical engineering, a grasshopper beam engine. 1847. The name Grasshopper was given to the Aeronca L-3 and Piper L for light aircraft, both used for reconnaissance and other support duties in World War II. The name is said to have originated when Major General Innes P. Swift saw Piper making a rough landing and remarked that it looked like a grasshopper for its bouncing progress. 94, 95, 96 Grasshopper beam engines were beam engines pivoted at one end, the long horizontal arm resembling the hind leg of a grasshopper. The type was patented by William Fremantle in 1803. Grasshoppers are a group of insects belonging to the suborder Caeli Fera. They are amongst what are possibly the most ancient living groups of chewing herbivorous insects, dating back to the early Triassic around 250 million years ago. Grasshoppers are typically ground-dwelling insects with powerful hind legs, which allow them to escape from threats by leaping vigorously. Their front legs are shorter and used for grasping food. As hemimetamorphous insects, they do not undergo complete metamorphosis. They hatch from an egg into a nymph or hopper, which undergoes 5 molts, becoming more similar to the adult insect at each developmental stage. The grasshopper hears through the tympanal organ, which can be found in the first segment of the abdomen attached to the thorax, while its sense of vision is in the compound eyes. A change in light intensity is perceived in the simple eyes ocelli. At high population densities and under certain environmental conditions, some grasshopper species can change color and behavior and form swarms. Under these circumstances, they are known as locusts. Grasshoppers are plant eaters, with a few species at times becoming serious pests of cereals, vegetables, and pasture, especially when they swarm in the millions as locusts and destroy crops over wide areas. They protect themselves from predators by camouflage. When detected, many species attempt to startle the predator with a brilliantly colored wing flash while jumping and, if adult, launching themselves into the air, usually flying for only a short distance. Other species such as the rainbow grasshopper have warning coloration which deters predators. Grasshoppers are affected by parasites and various diseases, and many predatory creatures feed on both nymphs and adults. The eggs are subject to attack by parasitoids and predators. Grasshoppers are diurnal insects, meaning they are most active during the daytime. A gray-bird grasshopper at Mungo National Park. Grasshoppers have had a long relationship with humans. Swarms of locusts can have devastating effects and cause famine, having done so since biblical times, too. Even in smaller numbers, the insects can be serious pests. They are used as food in countries such as Mexico and Indonesia. They feature in art, symbolism, and literature. The study of grasshopper species is called acridology.